the storm that brought him. The mountain didn't forgive mistakes. It punished them, quietly, slowly, with cold that crept into bone and pride. Miriam Cater knew that better than anyone. Her cabin sat above the pine line where the wind spoke like an old enemy. People in the valley called her the Mountain Widow, with the same tone they used for bad luck and broken things. They whispered about the husband she lost, about the land dispute that stole her peace, about the way she stopped coming to town unless she absolutely had to. But that evening, the mountain didn't care what the valley believed. It snowed too early. Heavy, sharp flakes at the windows like thrown salt. Miriam fed the last log into the stove and watched the flames struggle, then hold. She was sealing the jar of lentils when she heard it, a sound that didn't belong to wind. Not a branch cracking, not an animal. A human cough, raw and desperate, followed by something that sounded like a body collapsing in the snow. Miriam froze with her hand still on the jar lid. "No," she whispered, as if the mountain might listen. "Not tonight." Another cough, weaker. Her heart went bitter with memory. Her husband had coughed like that before he never came back. Miriam grabbed her lantern and stepped outside. The cold slapped her face. Snow swallowed her boots. The lantern's light cut a small trembling circle across the white. Then she saw him, a teen boy, maybe 16 or 17, half buried near her steps. Hair crusted with snow, lips cracked, cheeks hollow like the mountain had eaten him. His jacket was too thin for this altitude, and his hands were purple-blue. He tried to lift his head. Failed. Miriam crouched and shook his shoulder. "Hey, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered. "Don't send me back." "Back where?" He swallowed like the words were glass. "To them." He fainted again. Miriam's breath came hard. She looked down the slope, toward the trail that led to the valley. The same thing was to call for help, to let the town handle it. People loved handling things that weren't theirs. But the boy's body was already stiffening. Another hour out here, and he'd be dead. Just another secret buried by snow. Miriam slid her arms under him. He was light. Too light. "All right," she muttered through clenched teeth. "You want shelter? You'll get it. Don't die on my steps." She dragged him inside, boots scraping the floor, snow melting into dark puddles. The cabin smelled of wood smoke and solitude. Miriam laid him near the stove, wrapped him in her thickest quilt, then pressed a warm mug to his lips. His eyes cracked open. They were dark, fever-bright. "Drink," she ordered. He drank. A little, then coughed again. Miriam warmed broth, fed him slowly, and watched it with the same caution she'd once used for wild dogs. Hungry creatures could be grateful or dangerous. "What's your name?" she asked. He hesitated, then whispered, "Adam." "Miriam," she said, not offering more. He stared at her hands, calloused, scarred, steady. "You live alone?" "Yes." "Why?" Miriam's jaw tightened. "Because it's quieter than lies." He didn't smile. He looked relieved, as if he finally found a place where nobody demanded a performance. Outside, the storm thickened. Inside, the boy's breath steadied. Miriam sat in a chair across from him, lantern light painting sharp shadows across the cabin walls. "You're starving," she said. "Who's them?" Adam's fingers curled in the quilt like claws. For a second, Miriam saw pure fear in his eyes. Fear too old for his face. Then he swallowed and whispered, "If they find me, they'll say you stole me." Miriam's spine went cold. "Who are they?" she asked again, softer this time. Adam's gaze lifted toward her window, toward the black blur of trees beyond the snow. And then, faint but unmistakable, came the distant sound of engines climbing the mountain road. Adam's voice dropped to a trembling breath. "They're here. The men from the valley." The engine stopped outside like predators, deciding where to bite first. Miriam didn't move right away. She listened to the silence that followed, heavy, deliberate, the kind of silence that meant someone was holding their breath before they kicked your door in. Adam sat up too fast and winced, clutching his ribs. "They'll lie," he said. "They always lie." "Stay quiet," Miriam replied. Her voice didn't shake, but her hands did, just a little. She went to the small cabinet where her husband's old hunting rifle rested. She didn't lift it. She just touched it, like touching the past could lend her strength. A knock hit the door. Not polite, not patient. Bam, bam, bam. Miriam Cater, a man shouted. Open up. Adam's face drained of color. That's him, he mouthed. Miriam walked to the door and opened it just enough for cold air to slice inside. 3 men stood there in winter coats too expensive for mountain work. One wore a sheriff-style jacket, though Miriam knew the actual sheriff was a tired old man who hated paperwork. This one's badge looked new, too shiny, too proud. The man with the badge smiled like he was doing her a favor. Evening, ma'am. We're looking for a missing boy. Miriam's eyes stayed flat. Lots of people go missing in storms. That boy belongs to the Harper Family Foundation, another man said quickly, as if that name was supposed to bend the world. We provide shelter and care for vulnerable youth. Adam behind her made a small sound, half laugh, half sob. Miriam's mouth tightened. You run an orphanage? The man with the badge stepped forward. A rehabilitation program. The boy is unstable. Dangerous. He ran away after an incident. What incident? The third man, tall, with a jaw like stone, leaned in. He attacked a staff member. We have witnesses. Miriam looked from face to face. She'd lived long enough to recognize rehearsed truth. And you drove up a mountain in a blizzard for an unstable boy, she said. How heroic. The badge man's smile thinned. We heard he was seen on this trail. We're obligated to retrieve him. Miriam kept her body blocking the doorway. You can't come inside. The tall man's gaze slipped past her shoulder into the cabin, searching. We don't need your permission if he's here. You do in my home. The badge man sighed, like she was being unreasonable. Miriam, you're alone up here. You don't want trouble. If you're harboring him, you could be charged. Adam's voice cracked from behind her. I didn't attack anyone. Miriam felt his words strike the air like a thrown stone. All 3 men's eyes sharpened. The tall one smiled without warmth. There he is. Miriam's heartbeat slammed. She could feel the mountain pressing against the cabin, as if even the snow was listening. The badge man pushed the door wider. Adam, come here. You're sick. You're confused. Adam stepped into view, wrapped in Miriam's quilt, looking like a ghost of a boy, his fists clenched. I'm not going back. The second man raised his hands in fake peace. Listen, kid, you're making this hard. Miriam turned slightly toward Adam, low voice. Why are they really chasing you? Adam's eyes filled. Because I saw what they did. The badge man's patience snapped. Enough. Miriam, step aside. Miriam's chin lifted. No. The tall man moved fast. He grabbed Miriam's wrist and yanked her toward him. Pain shot her arm. Adam lunged forward, shouting, Don't touch her. In one violent motion, the tall man shoved Miriam sideways and reached for Adam. Miriam stumbled, caught herself on the wall, then saw it. The tall man's sleeve pulled back, revealing a tattoo. Not decorative. A symbol, sharp angles like a brand. Miriam's stomach dropped. She'd seen that symbol once before, on a folder her late husband had hidden in the cabin. The folder that had started the land dispute, the folder that had gotten him killed. Miriam's eyes burned as she stared at the tattoo. You, she whispered. You're not from any foundation. The tall man's grip tightened on Adam's arm. You've got a good memory for a widow. Miriam's voice rose raw. Get out of my house. The badge man's eyes narrowed. Miriam, don't be stupid. Miriam's hand shot to the stove poker, heavy iron, still warm. She lifted it, trembling, and pointed at them like a sword. The tall man laughed. You think that'll stop us? Adam looked at Miriam like she was the first person to choose him, without asking what it cost. Then the badge man leaned closer and said something that made the air freeze. Your husband died because he didn't mind his business. Want to join him? The secret buried in snow. Miriam's mind didn't scream. It went quiet. That was how she knew she was truly afraid. She kept the poker raised. You say his name again, she told the badge man, and I'll make you swallow your teeth. The tall man yanked Adam closer, making him stumble. Miriam, he said, voice low, you have one chance. Hand us the boy and we leave. Adam's breath trembled. Miriam, don't. They'll hurt you. Miriam's eyes stayed on the tattoo. That symbol was a ghost that never stopped haunting this mountain. Her husband had died trying to expose something tied to the land, something profitable enough to kill for. She had always wondered if she was next. Now she had her answer. You're trafficking, Miriam said. It came out like a curse, not sheltering. The badge man's gaze flickered, just for a second. Then he smiled again, careful with accusations. Adam's voice broke. They take kids. They make us sign papers. They... Shut up, the tall man hissed, squeezing Adam's arm until Adam cried out. Miriam's body moved before fear could vote. She swung the poker, not at the tall man's head, but at his wrist. Metal struck bone. He shouted and released Adam. Adam stumbled backward, and Miriam shoved him behind her. The badge man swore. Grab her. The second man rushed in. Miriam slammed the door into him hard enough to rattle the frame, but he forced it open with his shoulder. The cabin, her sanctuary, became a battlefield. Miriam grabbed Adam's hand. Back room. Now. They sprinted down the narrow hallway to the storage room, where Miriam kept supplies for winter. Behind them came stomping boots and furious voices. Adam's eyes darted. Where do we go? Miriam pulled up a loose plank on the floor. Beneath it was a narrow trapdoor, something her husband had built just in case. Miriam's throat tightened. Down. Adam stared. What is it? A crawl space that leads out behind the boulders. You're serious? I don't joke when men threaten to kill me. A crash sounded, one of them slamming against the hallway wall. They were close. Adam climbed down first, then reached up to help Miriam. Her knees protested, but fear gave her strength. They crawled through darkness, the air tasting of earth and old pine. Miriam's fingers scraped stone. Adam's breathing was loud. Then they emerged behind a cluster of rocks where the wind howled harder, hiding them in its fury. They crouched, watching the cabin door swing open. The men poured out like venom, flashlights slicing through snow. Split up, the badgeman shouted. They can't have gone far. Miriam whispered, Follow me. They moved low through trees, snow biting their faces. Miriam knew the mountain like she knew grief. Every sharp edge, every quiet trap. She led Adam toward a narrow ravine where the wind packed snow into a thick drift. Adam stumbled, nearly falling. Miriam caught him. I'm sorry, he gasped. I'm not strong. Strength isn't loud, Miriam said. It's stubborn. Adam blinked at her. Why are you helping me? Miriam looked at him. This boy with starving eyes and a truth too heavy for his age. She thought her husband's last words, whispered before he left for that meeting in town. If you ever see a chance to protect the truth, take it. Because someone should have helped my husband, she said. And because you're not dying alone on this mountain. They reached a small cave hidden behind an icy curtain of hanging vines. Miriam pulled Adam inside. The cave was cramped but sheltered. In the back, Miriam kept an emergency stash, blankets, dried food, a small radio. Adam stared. You planned for this. I planned for bad men, Miriam corrected, lighting a small lantern. They always come. Adam's hands shook as he ate a strip of dried meat. Then he pulled something from inside his torn jacket, an envelope sealed in plastic. Miriam's eyes narrowed. What is that? Adam swallowed. Proof. He slid out papers, copies of forms, names, signatures, and a flash drive taped to the back. They record everything, Adam said, to control people, to sell kids to rich men who want clean secrets. Miriam's blood turned to ice. How did you get this? Adam's voice shook. I clean an office. I saw a folder with your husband's name. I recognized it from the newspaper. I knew they were connected. I stole what I could and ran. Miriam's vision blurred. My husband's name? Adam nodded. He tried to expose them. They killed him. And they're still using the mountain land, your land, for something underground. That's why they wanted you gone, too. A sound echoed outside the cave, footsteps crunching snow nearby. Miriam blew out the lantern instantly. Darkness swallowed them. The badge man's voice drifted through the trees, close enough to touch. I know you're out here, Miriam. Give me the boy, and you can go back to being a lonely widow. Miriam clutched the flash drive in her fist, heart hammering. Adam leaned close, whispering, "If they catch us, promise me you'll get this out." Miriam's voice was almost inaudible. "I promise." Then a flashlight beam swept across the cave entrance, stopping, hovering, like it had sensed him a name that changes everything. The icy curtain tore open. Cold air rushed in, along with the silhouette of the tall man. His flashlight flooded the cave, blinding. "There you are," he said softly, like he was pleased. Miriam shoved Adam behind her, instinctively. Her palm found a sharp rock. She gripped it like a weapon. The tall man stepped closer, eyes scanning. Then he spotted the plastic envelope in Miriam's hand. His smile vanished. "You took something," he said. Miriam's voice was steady even as her muscles screamed to run. "You took my husband. Consider us even." The tall man's jaw tightened. "You don't understand what you're meddling with." "Then educate me," Miriam replied. "Or leave." Behind him, the badge man appeared at the entrance, breath smoking in the cold. "Well," he muttered, "this saves us time." Adam's body trembled, but his eyes, those dark, fever-bright eyes, burned with something new. Anger. The badge man aimed his flashlight directly at Adam. "Kid, come out. Now." Adam didn't move. The badge man's voice turned sharp. "You think she can protect you? She can't even protect herself." Miriam lifted her chin. "Touch him, and you'll learn what mountains teach women." The badge man laughed once. "Mountains don't teach. They isolate. They make people forget you exist." He took a step forward, and Miriam realized with sick clarity that these men weren't afraid of the law. They wore it when it suited them. Miriam's fingers tightened around the rock. "Adam," she whispered, "when I move, you run." "No," Adam whispered back. "Not this time." Miriam snapped her eyes to him. "What?" Adam stepped forward, shaky but determined. "I'm done running." The tall man's lips curled. "You're done breathing if you keep talking." Adam's voice rose, cracking but firm. "My name isn't Adam." The cave went still. Miriam's heart stuttered. The badge man narrowed his eyes. "What did you say?" Adam swallowed, then spoke like he was stepping off a cliff. "My name is Eli Harper." The badge man's face twitched, just a flicker of panic. Miriam stared. "Harper, as in the Harper Family Foundation?" Adam nodded. Tears spilled down his cheeks, but he didn't wipe them. "They took me because I'm a founder's grandson. They said I was troubled and shipped me to their program. It was a prison. When I tried to tell my grandfather, they cut me off from everyone. They forged documents. They said I was sick, delusional." Miriam's breath caught. "Why?" Adam's voice broke. "Because my grandfather, he's dying, and they're fighting over control of the foundation, over the money, over the land. They needed me gone so they could move the assets without an heir causing problems." The tall man lunged forward. "Shut." Miriam swung the rock, smashing into his cheek. He reeled back with a curse. The badge man grabbed Miriam's arm and slammed her against the cave wall. Pain sparked behind her eyes. "You stupid woman," he hissed. "You had one job. Stay irrelevant." Miriam struggled, gasping. "You killed my husband." The badge man leaned close. "Your husband got curious. Curiosity is expensive." Adam screamed, "Let her go." The tall man grabbed Adam by the throat and pinned him against the cave wall. "You want to be important? Then die important." Miriam's vision tunneled. She saw Adam's feet kick weakly. She saw his face turning red. Something in her snapped, something older than fear. Miriam drove her knee into the badge man's stomach, hard. He doubled over. She ripped free, grabbed the lantern she'd set aside, and smashed it into the tall man's head. Glass shattered. Fuel splashed. Flame flared. The tall man stumbled back, swearing, slapping at his sleeve as fire licked it. Adam collapsed, coughing violently, gulping air. Miriam grabbed Adam's hand. Run. They burst out of the cave into the storm. Wind screamed. Snow blinded. Behind them, the badge man shouted, "Shoot them!" A gunshot cracked the night. A tree near Miriam's head exploded with bark. They sprinted downhill toward the old logging path that led to the valley, toward people, phones, light, and danger. Adam's legs buckled. Miriam practically dragged him. "Keep moving," she yelled. Adam choked out, "Miriam, if I die—" "You won't." Another gunshot. Closer. They reached the edge of the logging path, and Miriam saw something that made her blood run cold. A second vehicle blocking the trail, headlights blazing like a trap. The badge man's voice carried through the wind. Cornered, nowhere left. Miriam turned, panting, gripping the flash drive like it was a heart. Adam looked at her, eyes wild. They planned this. Miriam's voice dropped into a fierce whisper. Then we ruined their plan. The mountain keeps receipts. The figure stepped closer, boots crunching snow with slow confidence. He wore a long coat, expensive, clean, too clean for this weather. His face was handsome in the polished way of men who never face consequences. Until they do. Adam's breath hitched. Uncle Dean. Miriam felt Adam's hand tighten around hers. Uncle Dean's smile looked warm from a distance. Up close, it was empty. "Lie," he said gently. "Thank God. You scared everyone." Adam's voice shook. "You did this." Dean sighed like the accusation hurt him. "You're confused. You've been through a lot." Behind them, the badge man and tall man emerged from the trees, flanking like wolves. Dean glanced at Miriam. "And you must be the widow." "Miriam Cater." He said her full name like he owned it. "You've always been inconvenient." Miriam's eyes narrowed. "So it was you." Dean's smile barely shifted. "Your husband should have accepted the offer. He thought truth was more valuable than survival." Adam's voice rose, raw. "You kidnapped me." Dean stepped closer, his voice still soft. "We contained you. For your own good. The foundation needs stability. You are going to ruin everything with your—" His eyes flicked to Miriam. "New friends." Adam shook his head, tears mixing with snow. "You're stealing the foundation. You're selling kids." Dean's expression hardened for a heartbeat. Then it smoothed again. "Eli, this world is run by people who understand leverage. Compassion is a luxury." Miriam lifted the plastic envelope. "Then you'll love what we have. Names, videos, proof." Dean's eyes locked onto the flash drive. The warmth in his face died completely. "Hand it over," he said, voice flat. "No," Miriam replied. Dean tilted his head. "Miriam, you don't want to be a hero. Heroes get funerals. Quiet people get to live." Miriam took one slow step forward. "My husband died because he tried to stop you. I already paid the price for quiet." Dean exhaled. "Then you leave me no choice." He pulled the gun from behind his back and raised it. Not at Miriam. At Adam. Adam froze. "Uncle." Dean's voice was cold now. "You were supposed to disappear. You were supposed to be a sad story people pity for a week. But you keep surviving. And survival makes people curious." Miriam's blood turned to fire. She stepped between the gun and Adam without thinking. Dean's eyes narrowed. "Move." Miriam didn't. "You'll die for a boy you met yesterday?" Dean asked. Miriam's voice trembled, not with fear, but with truth. "I met him when he was starving. That's all I needed to know." Adam whispered behind her. "Miriam, please." "Listen to me," Miriam said softly to Adam, without looking back. "Truth needs witnesses. If I fall, you run straight to the sheriff. The real one. You show him the drive. You say your name." Dean's finger tightened on the trigger. Then a new voice cut through the storm. "Dean Harper, drop it." A floodlight snapped on from the ridge above, washing the logging path in harsh white. Dean's head snapped up, stunned. The real sheriff stood there, older, heavier, shaking slightly from cold but steady with his weapon. Behind him were 2 deputies and several valley men with hunting rifles. Someone in town had heard the shots. Someone had followed the tire tracks. Someone had finally come. Dean's face shifted, surprise, then rage. "Sheriff, this is a family matter." The sheriff spat into the snow. "Not when there's gunfire on my mountain and a widow screaming for help." Miriam's heart slammed. She hadn't realized she'd screamed, only that she'd prayed. Dean's eyes darted. He tried to smile. "This boy is unstable. He ran away." Adam stepped out from behind Miriam, voice loud enough for the ridge to hear. "My name is Eli Harper, and my uncle is lying." Silence, heavy as snowfall. Dean's smile faltered. Adam lifted the envelope high. "This is proof. Videos, names, records. They've been kidnapping kids under the Foundation's name. They killed Miriam's husband to take her land. They threatened to kill us tonight." The tall man shifted nervously. The badge man's fake authority cracked in his eyes. The sheriff's jaw tightened. "Dean," he warned, "put the gun down." Dean stared at Adam like he wanted to erase him with his eyes. "You don't know what you're doing, boy." Adam's voice shook, but it didn't break. "I know exactly what I'm doing." Then Miriam did something the Valley would talk about for decades. She walked forward and placed a flash drive on the snow, right between Dean and the sheriff. A symbol, a line, a choice. "If you want it," she said to Dean, "you'll have to pick it up in front of everyone." Dean's eyes burned. He looked at the sheriff's gun, the deputies, the Valley men. Too many witnesses. Too much light. He lowered his gun slowly, breathing hard. The sheriff motioned with his weapon, hands where I can see them. Dean's voice turned venomous. "This isn't over, Miriam." Miriam met his gaze, steady as stone. "It is for you." The deputies moved in, cuffs clicking like justice finally arriving on time. Dean tried to speak again, tried to bargain, threaten, charm, but the storm swallowed his words. When it was done, Adam sank to his knees in the snow, shaking. Miriam knelt beside him, putting her arms around his shoulders the way she'd once wanted someone to hold her. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for bringing this to your door." Miriam's voice softened. "You didn't bring it. It was already coming. You just gave me a reason to fight." In the days that followed, the Valley learned the truth. The Foundation program was raided. Children were rescued. Names that had been untouchable were dragged into courtrooms and forced to answer questions under oath. Miriam's husband's file, hidden for years, became the proof that connected everything. For the first time since he died, Miriam felt his spirit rest. Adam stayed, not because he had nowhere else to go. He had money now, protection, a name that could open doors. He stayed because the mountain had given him something he'd never had in any mansion, a home that didn't want anything from him except his honesty. One evening, months later, the snow fell gently instead of violently. Miriam stood outside, watching the sky blush pink over the ridgeline. Adam walked up beside her, taller now, stronger, his cheeks no longer hollow. "You know," he said quietly, "the Valley still calls it a mountain widow." Miriam snorted. "Let them." Adam looked at her with a seriousness that made her breath catch. "They're wrong." Miriam turned. "About what?" Adam's voice trembled, not with fear anymore, but with something brave. "About you being alone." Miriam opened her mouth to argue, then stopped, because she realized how different her cabin sounded now, how the silence had changed, how loneliness had loosened its grip. Adam took her hand, gentle. "When they took everything from me," he said, "you gave me shelter. You gave me truth. You gave me a reason to live." Miriam's eyes blurred. "You're just a boy." Adam swallowed. "No, I'm someone you saved." He hesitated, then said the words like a vow he'd been holding inside his ribs for months. "I don't want to call you Miriam anymore, not when you became my family." Miriam's breath caught. "Then what do you want to call me?" Adam's voice was soft, steady, fearless. "My wife." Miriam stared at him, at the boy the mountain delivered, at the man he was becoming, at the truth they fought for together. And for the first time in years, She didn't feel like the mountain had taken everything. She felt like it had returned something. Slowly, painfully, but honestly, Miriam squeezed his hand. "Then you better earn it." Adam smiled through tears. "I will